Hello once again, it's Matthew here from Matthew Northern Music. Thank you for watching my latest video. And as ever, if you're interested in the kind of videos I make, be them about music, music technology, electronics, retro tech, or even some of my own music, please hit the subscribe button. It really does help the channel to grow. And if you like what I do, please share my videos on social media. Now, today's video is about what's in this box. Now, I quite like building these pedals that you get from kit form. I think they're quite fun to do. And this one is a new one. Well, it's new that I haven't really seen these on the internet for sale before. And it was another AliExpress job, I think. And it's supposedly a clone of the famous Ibanez Tube Screamer. Now, I've built a Tube Screamer as a pedal before. I've built one on Vera board and it worked pretty well. And I kind of thought, well, it would be quite good to try one of these kits out and see whether it's any good. So we'll get this box open and have a look. Here we go then. Now let's open this up. Hopefully should open up fairly easily. And here we go, this is our kit. So here we've got, oh, that looks like a sticky label to go on the front, which has got all of our markings. So our foot switch will go there, our LED go there, level, tone and overdrive, and the DC input, which I think is probably going to be on the side. Here's what looks like our case, and our case comes pre-drilled. So this is really nice, pre-drilled case. So you don't have to make any holes or drills or anything. And this sticker will stick on front of the case. Now, obviously you've got an option here whether to paint the rest of the case or not, or whether just to leave it as is. I'd be tempted to paint it. Maybe spray hammerite it first and then put the label on top, but we'll think about that in a bit. Now we've got two printed circuit boards. This is unusual. Normally it's all done on one, but we've got two. Now this circuit board here has the DC connector, the LED and the foot switch. So this will be mounted at the bottom of the pedal. And it should be okay. It looks could be quite close to the, actually I think it'll probably be alright actually. So this will kind of go there, and that mounts here with the jack sockets just underneath. And then this circuit board here is our actual main effects pedal. Now, I'm wondering if the reason these are two separate circuit boards is A, that there's going to be a gap anyway, and secondly, maybe they also retail these as a separate PCB for people that are building their own pedals that might not necessarily want this PCB as well, because all of this you can actually just wire straight out. You don't need a PCB. Now we've got some more parts here. This is our LED, our DC connector, and our jack sockets. Now these are actually PCB mount. Oh, I see. The jack sockets go on the PCB as well. So everything's actually mounted on this PCB. So that's good. Now, I'm wondering how easy it's going to be to get these into the case with the PCB. And I think it's going to be a case of placing the sockets in the case first, then putting the PCB on top, and then soldering the connectors. But we'll worry about that later. Here we've got all our main parts. So there's a bunch of resistors, capacitors, there's a transistor in there. Well, it might be a voltage regulator, but I think it's a transistor. All our parts there, they all seem labelled, so that's good. There's our foot switch, the bog standard, you know, made in China foot switch that's on just about everything that we all have crates of. And we've got our pots. So we've got 3 pots and 3 knobs. So yeah, everything seems to be here in order. And you know what you got to remember about this kit is that was less than £20, which I think is really, really cheap. Now, there are 2 things that this pedal doesn't have. The first thing is it doesn't have a battery. This is designed to run for power supply only, which isn't much of a problem because that's what most people do anyway. The other thing is that it doesn't have a diagram. There's no wiring instructions or anything, so we're going to have to kind of guess this. And in part, this is kind of why I'm doing this project, because I kind of think, well, it's going to be much easier for people who have not done one of these before if they look at this video, and if you want to pause it and then follow at home, then you can do that. Now, firstly, I've got out the bag of bits designed to go with the second board. Now, what do we have here? Well, we've got this, the DC connector, which I've just popped in there because I wanted to double check the orientation of the board. And the only way the board can go is this way up in order for the DC jack to be on that side in there. And the pedal switch, the foot switch, which is here, will also go on the board. So what have we got? We've got the board, we've got our foot switch here, which I'm just going to take those off, and I'm going to loosen this slightly because we may need to adjust that nut, I'm not sure. And what else have we got? Well, we've got an LED here, which will fit into the case. We've got 2 jack sockets, and we've got a resistor. Now, the resistor is, of course, for the LED. Okay, well, I'm just going to measure this resistor just to check it's all okay. And it says it's 10k, I think. Is that 10k? Yeah, 9.9k, so it's a 10k resistor. So that's exactly what it should be. So we're going to pop that in first. Okay, so first in is this resistor. Just popped on my fume extractor because actually it's something you should really have on all the time when you solder, and I'm particularly guilty at not always switching it on. Okay, next thing I'm going to solder in is the DC jack, which is here. And actually, as you can see, this fume extractor is actually very good because it is taking all the fumes well away from me and into there and into a filter the other side. So, you know, it's a good thing to have. Now, we need to get this cable wired in. Now, this is a 4-pole cable that joins the 2 boards together. Now, this is obviously going up this way, and if we hold the boards together like this, you may be able to see when it focuses that actually that's how they link. So what I'm going to do is this wire is going to have to go from the bottom across because the jacks will otherwise be in the way. So that's our 4 wires together, and hopefully you can see. Although I suspect my hand's probably in the way. Now we solder in the foot switch. Okay, now that's in, I'm going to take out the jack again because I want to make sure I get the LED in correctly. Now, with an LED, the longest leg is the positive connection and the shortest leg is the negative connection. And we can see on the board, once I've got it out, if we look at the board, because these are standard kind of, you know, boss connectors on here, the inside pin is going to be the negative and the outside pin is going to be the positive. So positive voltage is coming around here and it's going here, so we know that's definitely the positive. And if we turn the board over, you can actually see from the arrow, the mark here, that that's also the positive because it's showing the voltage output. So the long leg goes to the left hand side here, so we can push that in. We can then pop this into the box. I don't need to worry about the jacks at the moment. I can just push the foot switch where it's supposed to go, and then we can push our LED through the hole like that. So if I bring it up a little bit, I don't know if I want it pushing right the way through, so I'll bring it back ever so slightly, and then, in fact, you can feel it with your finger. If it's sort of hanging down, you've got to hold it with your finger like that. Then I'm just going to bend one of the legs with it in that position, and then bend the other leg. Right, so they're now in the correct position, and I can now solder in the LED. And once this is soldered in, this whole board is then complete. Okay, let's snip the legs off. I'm now going to take this out. A little wiggle. And that's our board complete. And actually you could probably plug in some power and turn the switch on and off, and you probably see the LED go off and on, but I don't need to do that at the moment. I'm just going to put that to one side because that bit is complete. Now what we need to do next is to populate the main board. And we've obviously got our main board here, and we've got 2 bags of components. Now this bag of components here will go on this side of the board, and the 3 pots will be mounted on the opposite side of the board, and they have actually labelled them, so 20k, 500k and 100k. But what we're going to do on this board is I'm going to wire this up exactly the same as I would do any other circuit board, and that is we start with the smallest components first, and then we finish with the largest components. So what do we have? Well, we've got a bunch of resistors, and they've all been labelled, which is handy, although you know you can always use your volt, your DVM to measure each component just to make sure it's correct. And all of our resistors do not have the values written on the board. They're not written. But what's written on the resistors themselves? The resistors themselves, though, they actually have the numbers on. So this is so that says 1. So if we find R1 on the board, which is there, then this is the resistor. So they don't actually tell you what the values are. So as I'm building this kit based on what I've been given, this is probably why you don't get an instruction manual, because they're going to assume you're just going to put 1 to 1, 2 to 2, etc. So as long as whoever did the parts for this got it correct, then it should be fairly easy. Now there's 2 diodes here. Obviously this is the main part of the clipping circuit, and they actually fit above R1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop them in. Now they've got a stripe, and they probably can't see it, but the stripe is that direction, and on the board you've got one going one way and one going the other. So I'm going to pop these in. As I say, these are all mounted together, and so I shall pop them all in place, and then these 3 I shall solder in, and then we know that they're in the right place. And once I've soldered these in, I will then switch the camera off and I will solder in all the other resistors. So you can get that in the middle more so it looks a bit neater. It doesn't really matter. Okay, so there's those first 3 components. Let's get them soldered in, and then let's get the rest of the resistors in. Okay, those are in, and we'll get the rest in. Right, well, I'm not going to do any more soldering because I've come across a real problem. And that is all the resistors have got numbers R1 to, I don't know, R17, 18. The problem is, because they labelled them like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we've got no idea actually what's what, because, like, you know, 4, for example, has got 2 resistors, but I've got no idea where they go, and there was no schematic for this, and I can't find anything online. And also with this circuit, there doesn't seem to, I can't find, other than the person I bought this from, I cannot find a copy of that circuit board anywhere on the internet, and I can't find any information as to regarding this circuit. So I've emailed the seller asking them for a diagram or a parts list, so at least that way we've got something to cross-reference, because some of these resistors I put in might be the wrong resistors in the wrong place anyway. I don't know, because this isn't a standard Tube Screamer circuit either. It's one that whoever this person built this kit has kind of come up with, and there's only one photo of it on the internet, and you can't really read the resistor values on it very easily. Okay, well, I've found a circuit diagram for a similar Tube Screamer, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to, by looking at where the other components are, I'm going to reverse work out where different components go. For example, this resistor here, R2, that biases Q1, and R12 that biases Q2. Well, R2 is 510, R12 is 510, and there are here two 510k resistors. So I know what these are doing and where they're going. So I'm going to solder those in, and then I'm going to try and work the rest out like I have done using this diagram. Another thing, from the photo I can at least identify where the capacitors go, so I'm going to make notes of that as well. Okay, I've got all the capacitors in based on the photograph, and in the case of some of the electrolytics, looking at the circuit diagram. For example, this capacitor here goes to the output, and that's 10 microfarad according to the circuit diagram, and it looks right on the schematic. This one here is 100 microfarad, and that goes basically across the power supply rail. Again, I checked that, that seems correct, and therefore the 47 microfarad, which is here, that's the default one. So I think now the capacitors are all in, I've got enough to be going on with looking at the circuit diagram to know what value resistors are connected to which different parts of the circuit. So I'm going to go through it one by one, which I'm going to do in the morning because it's now getting towards bedtime, and I will then have on this sheet of paper a list of every component, which I will add at the end of this video. So if you've got this circuit, it should be correct. Well then, that's what we call in these parts a bit of a slog, but I have got all the resistors in here now. I had to remove a couple that I put in earlier because they were definitely in the wrong place, but I think with the help of a circuit diagram for one of these pedals, that all of that is now correct. Now, there was one resistor on here which was 33 ohms, which isn't in a normal Tube Screamer circuit, but I established that it's basically like a fuse, and it goes from the power coming in to where the power's kind of distributed. And I think the idea is if it gets shorted, then that resistor will burn out, and then the rest of the circuit will be okay. So all I've got to do now is fit the pots, solder to this board, and then we are ready to test. Well, this is the first bit of testing. I've just plugged a power supply in just to this board, and as you can see, the LED comes on when I turn the switch on. When I turn the switch off, it goes off. Now, part of me actually thinks that this pedal might be better not using this sticker and actually just sticking on, you know, some sort of label, because, you know, it's not very elegant. I'm hoping this might peel off the other way, but I've got to like line this up now and hope for the best. So yeah, here I am hoping for the best, and almost there. Take that off. It's this bottom bit that's the hardest to do. I think, yeah, there we go. Yep, that's now lined up. Right, I'm actually editing this video as I talk now, and there is so much waffle on this video, and so much this might work, this might work. I'm going to cut all that out. I'm just going to explain what has happened with this build. And I put all the bits together as I thought they would be. I plug the pedal in, the tone control works, you get a bit of overdrive, but the level is very, very low. Okay, well this is our sound test and everything's turned up to full, and this is basically what we get. Now, the tone seems to work, so if I turn it all the way down, if I turn the overdrive down, yeah, that's just dicky cable here. So, you know, there's a little bit of drive, but then our output level is there. But then if I go to the clean bypass, we've got plenty of level. So basically there isn't enough amplification. And I worked out that by writing down all the component lists, so I wrote down which resistor was R1 to R17. I wrote down what they all were. And from this I found a pattern. And the pattern was that R1 was resistor that was labelled number 1 in the packet. R2 was number 2 in the packet. R3 and R4 and a couple others, they were all the same value. And if you went to the resistors that were called 3, then 3 had, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 resistors. I think they were 1Ks or 10Ks, can't remember. And so this was the system that the make of the pedal had done. The resistor number 1 is R1, the resistor that was on its own 2 R2, then the resistors that were listed as 3, where there was about 5 of them, they would be resistor 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then what was called 4, that will be 8 and 9, and so on. This is how I believed the pedal was designed. However, it still didn't quite work, because when I tried it, yes, I was getting some gain and whatever, but now the tone control wasn't working. And I knew on the tone control circuit that there was a 220 ohm resistor going between the wiper of the tone control via a capacitor. And so I popped in, I took out the resistor that was there, which was a 10K. I popped in a 220 ohm, and yeah, the tone control started working. But the pedal didn't quite sound right. And so R17 on this pedal, which I had put the 220 ohm resistor in, which was way too low because that was part of the circuit for the output of the circuit. Because basically you have a transistor input circuit that goes into the chip, that then does all the overdrive and the tone, and then out of that it goes through another transistor and then out the gate. And so I popped in the 10K into there and it sounded much better. So the system that the manufacturer of the kit had was almost correct, but not quite. But we now have at least a set of resistor values that I believe are correct for this kit. The manufacturer of this website, well, the website that's printed on the circuit board, does have this web page, and it basically has the same photo that's on the AliExpress page. And I got the website from the listing here on the side of the circuit board, but there's no additional information. And if you want to register on the website where it says you can get more information, then it asks you for your mobile number, which is a bit dodgy, but I thought I'd give it a go. But then it wouldn't authorize, it said, you know, I was typing in the wrong phone number, so I think it's pretty hopeless. Now, one thing I didn't notice at first was this QR code here, and I managed to scan that in on my phone, and it did take me to a page in Chinese, but it was just a diagram of that actual board and not of the whole circuit, which is really annoying, because had it taken me to the whole circuit, I might not know what was going wrong. Now, some time has passed since the last bit of this video and this bit of the video, and because I haven't edited any of the video yet, I don't know how much of what I filmed is going to make it or not, because this was a laborious project. It took ages, but the final thing with it is this. The circuit I wired up based on looking at other Tube Screamer circuits and trying to follow the circuit board through, I got about 70% of the way there. Then rewiring it using the resistor 1 goes to 1, resistor 2 goes to 2, resistor 3 goes to 3, 4 and 5, etc. The way they'd labelled it got me about a similar distance, but they were both wrong. And by following the circuit and correcting a few things, I finally managed to get this pedal to be exactly as it should be. And as you can hear, it doesn't sound too bad at all. So I'm going to give you a quick sound demo now, and then I'll give you a little demo of it in a mix. These are the settings then that I've got the guitar on at the moment. And that's with the tone full up. Now, one of the problems I found was that I couldn't get the tone control to work. And if I sort of go, you know, we've got quite a sweep, but it's around that point where you get the most change. Now, if I whack the overdrive up to the, actually I'm going to put the overdrive to the minimum, and we get this kind of drive. Let's bring the level down a little bit. Then bring it up to 3 o'clock. Then to 3 o'clock, and then full whack, and yeah, there we have it, a fully working Tube Screamer. And I've got to say, now it's all working, I think this pedal sounds really good, so let's listen to it in a mix. Well, this was certainly a bit of a tour de force to build this pedal. However, now it's working, I really like it. I think it's got a great sound. I would certainly like to gig with it if I ever get around to doing electric gigs ever again, because these days I mostly just play acoustic. But for 20 quid, it's well worth a punt to have a go with, especially now you can whiz back on this video and get the correct resistor values. I also think for 20 quid, the casing is really, you know, it's a proper case, but it's nicely drilled out. And, you know, even if you weren't going to build this pedal, if you bought this for 20 quid, you could still utilise the circuit board that's got the foot switch and the LED and the inputs and outputs and the DC connector, and you could build something else to go in the top. You know, wouldn't make that much difference to the cost of buying those parts off the shelf. Obviously, you'd only really want it if you were going to use three pots. But yeah, that's it. That's the pedal done. But the only downside really is that you know, I don't think the printing on the label is all that good. But you know, other than that, it works well. So thank you for watching this video. Hope you found it of some use. If you have bought one of these and you think I might have still made a mistake on the wiring or whatever, please leave a comment in below. And as ever, I'll catch you on the next video.